Town Council public hearings and special meeting, February 6, 2025, Cape Charles Civic Center. If I could get a roll call, please.
Newman present.
Holloway present.
Buckholz present.
Buda present.
Grossman present.
Ashworth present.
Let it be known we've established a quorum, and if we could all rise for a moment of silence and pledge allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Tonight, we're doing the public hearings. First thing is the fiscal year 2025 mid-year budget amendment.
We got to do the public hearings first.
Oh, I'm sorry, public hearings. Oh, sorry, 3 minutes.
Nobody has signed up.
Well, there we go. Now we can jump
For
right
either
into it.
topic.
So someone has to.
All right, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Was that motion for both hearings or just one?
For both
Okay.
public hearings.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Both public hearings are closed. Now we'll get on to the fiscal year 2025 mid-year budget amendment.
There's no
We're
public.
not having
public
really
comments.
Yeah.
which nobody has signed up for.
Skipping all over it. Right here.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you.
Number 5.
Are you looking at the right?
I got it. I am. Sorry. All right, so no one signed up for that either?
No.
All right. Do we need a motion for that?
No.
No. Good.
Now it's my turn.
All right, let's go.
All right, so first order up for business is the fiscal year 25 mid-year budget amendment. As you well know, we had a work session on January 16th to look at everything that has changed from the time we originally developed the budget to now, and recommended certain adjustments to include changes in the general fund in revenue and expenditures of $353,497, changes in the capital fund in revenue and expenditures of $336,324, and in the harbor fund, revenue and expenditures of $2,711. The detail of what those numbers comprise is attached in the line items that for each line item and the amounts. The spreadsheet that has been provided only covers those items that have changed, not the entire budget. So at this point, I would recommend a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget as presented tonight.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yep, I have two items. One has to do with, it appears that you adjusted from our work session the distribution between our capital funds and our normal reserve funds. They're not the same amounts, but they net out to zero. And I'm wondering why the change of the swing on the two.
What page, Paul?
Well, at the first page, the fourth line item, dividends and interest on investments. It was 444 and now it's 469. And when you go to the capital, it changes, reverses the
Right.
amount.
Adrian, you remember the issue we had with that? We had to back that out.
Yes, I do remember. I'll be quite honest, off the top of my head, I don't, I'm not 100% sure what the reason why was. May have just did a small adjustment to our calculations. Oh, you know what it was? Now it's coming back. It was because of the other changes that council recommended at the work session that
Right.
required more funding to the general fund to cover those changes.
So you remember we were using the interest income
Right.
to balance
Right.
it. So rather than change the the amount that we were transferring into the capital fund, we were already putting money into the fund balance, so we reduced that amount by the amount we needed to balance, to make the changes you wanted in the general fund.
All right, so you had
If
to
that
add
makes sense.
another, I don't know, $25,000 to the general, and as a result, you bumped up the
Yes.
dividend portion and took it out of the capital.
Correct.
Okay. All right, the other question came up as a result of our 565,000 capital expenditure for our water line. And I had asked you after the meeting for an explanation as to why the monies couldn't be recovered. And if you could just provide that response, you responded to me, but if you could just provide that input to the balance of,
So the question was, there are mechanisms when you put in utility lines to recoup some of that money as people tie in. So if other people come up and develop it and they tap in, then usually it's the developer who does it, could recoup some of that money. That doesn't really apply in this situation because really the only other viable person who would hook up would be the workforce housing project that we're putting the line in for. The whole point of us doing this is frankly to subsidize the infrastructure necessary to bring the workforce housing project to a price point that works. So if we were to require hookups to refund ourselves, we'd be defeating the purpose for us doing it. So while, yes, those are options that are available generally, that's not something that we ever contemplated doing.
Anything else?
Yes. I'm still struggling with the expenses that have been talked about for managing the short-term rentals. And the $45,000 initial outlay for a software package seems to be incongruent to what we know is the amount of short-term rentals right now. So to have a $45,000 outlay initially on a software package plus a $12,000 a year, I think that's a relative number, and a new hire and a golf cart before we really have a good understanding of exactly how many short-term rentals we have seems exorbitant to me. And I'd like to propose that we eliminate the software package until we have a better understanding of how many short-term rentals we have in the community, and we do that through the new hire.
Is there a second?
I can't second.
If there's no second, then it dies.
All right, not hearing a second. That motion doesn't carry. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about it, but I know that we did go over as far as donations. Would that be a time to talk about it in the budget now that we were looking to put a line item on here, or no?
It was we could, you could make not you, someone else could make an amendment to do that, but my suggestion was that we would build that into the next budget, not into this one.
Yeah.
But you could do it now if you wanted to.
Okay, well, I would just like to say, just on my part, that when I did talk to everybody, I thought that I did have at least enough that wanted to do it. I went ahead and put out the money for the decoy show. If you want to reimburse me, great. If not, I'll just keep it as a personal donation to the decoy show.
How much?
It was $500.
It was for the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Make-A-Wish Foundation, correct.
So I think my understanding is, so there was some miscommunication on that. Sometimes that happens when we do individual polling. I think that the general consensus, as I understand it, was it wasn't the where the money was going. That was not the issue. The issue was that it wasn't budgeted and that it set a precedent that if any good cause then would then come up and what would be the basis for saying no. So my suggestion was that if you want to do things like that in the future, you create do it at budget time. Make a line item that says, donations or whatever it is you want to call it, and you fund it to a certain amount and you put parameters on it, no more than X dollars per whatever. You create a program by which then you can decide whether or not you wanted to do it. That would be the proper way to do it, I think. And I would suggest that we do that as part of the next budget.
Yeah, I think it warrants a good discussion because we, for those of us who've been on, I guess Paul and Andy and myself, we got away from donations for nonprofits as far as regular budget items. And I think it's a discussion we need to have and definitely have parameters set to do that. I certainly want to support things. I always think of the town supporting in kind with services, whether it's public works or security and whatever those issues are. So I just feel like it'd be a healthy conversation for us to have to do it. I certainly am not against sponsorship of things, but I do think when we used to allocate to nonprofits, we got in a lot of trouble of one getting more than the other and them comparing each other, and it really makes it difficult. I don't know that that's how we should be spending tax dollar money.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too.
Yeah,
It's taxpayer money,
yeah.
and we don't divvy it out to just any given foundation that we feel is appropriate. There's a ton of them out there, but we're not giving taxpayer money from my perspective.
Yeah, that's why I thought just for this one though, just to give my opinion on it. It's the third time it was here. It's brought in over 4,000 people each time. It's been a great thing for the town across the board. And, showing support of $500 to a nonprofit, I don't feel is, exorbitant in any way. And if we do cap it at a certain amount, first come, first serve, if we have it at a certain amount, if we cap it at 3,000, 3,500, whatever it is, cap it at $500 per organization. Once it runs out, it's done. But I think that the taxpayers in town would get behind those kind of donations for those events that go on in town. Just my opinion.
I agree. I love Tammy's suggestion though, in terms of security in particular, because I know that that's an expense that's exorbitant to organizations, and I think that that's a priority. Maybe we look to having a fund where we can offset some of those expenses so that organizations that are having events here that require security that maybe can't afford to pay the police department, we're helping to fund that in some way.
Or if they can't afford the special use use event, I never know the name of that, permit. There's things that we could waive. I just feel in kind that works well as a partnership, and it shows our support of the event and the importance of it. I just feel like that's worked best, but I do think it's a warranted discussion, for us to have some specific.
So I'll take that as action to include that in the first budget draft for you to discuss.
Yeah.
For the next budget, not this
Yeah.
one.
Can I just ask you, before we let this go, when you brought it up to me, I don't certainly disagree with supporting Make-A-Wish, but I didn't understand, is the decoy show, it's not like a nonprofit's event, it's kind of a for-profit event, and they were being philanthropic by saying, hey, we're going to charge for parking and do something nice for the community by donating the parking revenues back to Make-A-Wish. So I wasn't sure, that there were actually sponsorship opportunities sort of thrown out there in general to the public. You may know more than I do.
There were actually 3 charities that I know of. It was Citizens for Central Park, or Museum, I'm sorry,
That received funds from that donation.
from the event.
50% Make-A-Wish, 25% for the other two.
But it wasn't as though, and again, I'm not making an argument, I have no real opinion about it, but it wasn't as though,
It's not a nonprofit organization
that was
organizing it.
sponsoring an event that was then looking to offset and, underwrite the expenses for that event by reaching out to businesses or.
Well, they were. They did both.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did get donations. They did charge for the booths for everybody
Gotcha.
being there. So they did make money on the event as well. They just brought in the charity aspect
Gotcha.
with the 3 charities that they
Yeah.
were.
I don't need to beat it, I'm not beating it to death, I was just trying to get
Right.
clarity on what it was, actually.
Any other discussions on the budget?
So I take it's just going to be a 25 donation for me for next year. All right.
Call for a vote?
Oh, no one's even made a motion.
Yeah, there's a motion on the
We
floor.
do. We have it on the
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was seconded, and we had the discussion.
Oh, for the-
So call for the question, I guess.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
One opposed to passing the
Moving on. Conditional use permit, 2025-01, 133 Mason Avenue.
Good evening. We're requesting, you've held your public hearing this evening. There are no comments on a conditional use permit application that has been filed at 133 Mason Avenue, tax map 83A3-2-1-62, formerly the location of the Shanty, what restaurant was there before?
Kelly's.
Kelly's. Sorry. Kelly's Pub, soon to be a new restaurant by Mr. Dempster. He is seeking a 6-foot-tall fence to be located at the front of the property, a screening for 3 propane tanks, which will be located to the left of the handicapped access door. The property is located in the C1 zoning district as well as the historic district overlay. We've met extensively with Mr. Dempster over this. We attempted to try and get these placed in the rear of the property. However, he doesn't actually own the very back of the building. That is owned by a different property owner. They were unwilling to agree to any sort of easement for the placement of those tanks. So all that we are left was to look at the front area of the building. Currently, there is a tank that is underground. That is where that table used to be in the corner. I think it's been called the smoking table, but there it is. Cigar table. Cigar table. So that tank was considered. However, it's different vendors between the 2 different proprietors of this building. And the current propane vendor does not wish to repurpose or use that tank with valid reasons, and we've outlined that in the staff report for you. So we will be abandoning that tank in place and filling that in appropriately under the building code requirements. And so we are looking to put 3 above-ground tanks to service that restaurant, and it needs effective screening under our ordinance. You can't have a fence taller than 4 feet in the front of your property under our zoning ordinance, thus require a conditional use permit up to 6 feet for that to occur. So that gets you the basics of the request itself. It is in the historic district, so the actual material and look of it will be under the purview of the Historic District Review Board, and this is right now scheduled to go to them at their meeting later this month, assuming I receive an affirmative action from Town Council on tonight's request. And I'll stop talking. Oh, I should tell you about the Planning Commission meeting, shouldn't I? Sorry. I'm just jumping ahead of myself. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on Tuesday. They had no public comments, and it was motioned by Commissioner Smith to recommend to the Town Council to approve CUP 2025-01 for this conditional use permit for this purpose, and was seconded by Commissioner Wright, and it was approved unanimously. Now I'll stop talking.
Just a quick question. From where the fence is going to be and the door that's the handicapped access, what's the width of that walkway through there?
I'm going to defer to the property owner at this point if he wants to answer that. Come on. Come on up.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. I'll be honest with you, Ken, I don't have that dimension off the top of my head. I do know that we have enough space to maintain having all 3 tanks on our property while also remaining with 36-inch pathway in front of the handicap door to have handicap accessibility.
Yeah.
The actual dimension,
No, don't need that.
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Happy to answer any questions.
What are these 390-gallon things?
150s, 120s. It's exactly, I don't know if you're familiar with it, at Dead Rise, we have the exact same thing. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You know, the main issue is, and I want to just take a minute to explain this. When we first entered into contract with the pub in early December 8th to be exact, we had a 14-day discovery period. And the very first thing, my biggest concern was this propane tank, because it was brought to my attention even prior to making an offer that it was potentially a no-go for a different vendor. You know, the current vendor is, I don't want to, you know, anyways, the vendor that we use at the other locations looked into it. They said they did a leak test on the top. They said it seemed okay. We would not have moved forward with the purchase if we thought that we couldn't have a resolution on this propane issue, because digging up that sidewalk and replacing it, on top of that, even if we were allowed to dig it up and replace it, where it exists now does not meet today's codes. The codes have changed since 2005 when it was installed, in terms of proximity to the location. And so the tank, in theory, without a CUP, could not be put back where it is today. It was deemed by the company, we work with Sharp, and they've been terrific to us for years. They brought, after they initially leak tested and told me they thought it was okay, and we continued forward and closed on the deal, they brought their vice president down, who's also the director of safety for Sharp Energy. He took one look at it and said, nope, we're not touching it, right? We're not taking this tank over. And part of the reason why, quite frankly, was, when they opened the top, there was, cigarette butts and little empty liquor bottles and things like that, incendiaries inside the propane tank, right? So, I mean, and I've been in the restaurant business for a long time, you wouldn't believe some of the crazy things that we see. It's no mark on anybody who is running the place, it's just that people are gonna be people, and you can't watch everybody at all times, So, with that being known, when he came down to take a look at it, they basically said, you can stay with the previous vendor, and they'll continue to fill the tank, or if you really wanna go with us, we will not take over this tank. They really, and I put my staff before anything else, in terms of taking care of our employees. They gave me enough of a fright that a potential leak that could go undetected for years could leach through soil and could reach, neighboring properties, and as soon as it finds any type of ignition, it's gonna go where it's gonna go, which could be a block away. So they gave me enough fear that it was like, okay, this is, no matter what we do here, we're not using this tank, right? And then it became a question of how do we relocate these tanks somehow or do something.
Yeah.
And honestly, for us, I mean, it's not the ideal situation at all. Giving up 4 seats at a restaurant in the summer is a tremendous loss of revenue. And I've tried to move it into the back alleyway, but again, that's not our property. We didn't, have an easement there that would allow it. And the property owners there have rental properties and weren't, terribly excited about the idea of an eyesore propane tank on the backside of their new Airbnbs, which I understand. So this is what we were left with. It's a little bit of a hardship situation. We don't really have another alternative. So, we propose to fence it in. The reason for the 6 foot as opposed to the 4 foot or 5 foot, obviously the tanks are 55 inches, so they're above 4 foot tall. If we went with a 5 foot fence at 60 inches, I think anybody who's over 5 feet tall is gonna see this as an eyesore, right? So maybe probably 5'6" or 5 or above, you're gonna see these tanks from the sidewalk. With a 6 foot fence from 5 feet away, you could be like 6'6" and not see these tanks, right? So they're also slightly, if you can picture it, slightly elevated. There's a little bit of a slope right there in front of the pub to the left. So the tanks are actually about like 4 inches above the grade of the sidewalk itself. So with a 6 foot fence, in theory, we're giving it basically a 6'4" blindfold, right? Thanks.
Anybody else? Make a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve conditional use permit 2025-01 for 133 Mason Avenue for the installation of a non-conforming 6 foot fence within the commercial district C1.
Second.
Is there any other discussion before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right, employment contract for the new town manager.
So as you know, I'll be retiring soon in May, and we've been looking for quite some time.
Really?
102 days, but who's counting?
Was 105 on Monday?
We've been in a lengthy process trying to find someone who's going to do a good job for the town. We hired a recruitment firm to help us do a nationwide search. They had over 30 applicants, which they culled down to 10. They did some additional work with them and then proposed some for you to interview. You interviewed 2, and you eventually chose or settled on Rick. The contract is essentially my contract that our attorney developed for you at the time of my hire. I went through and just kind of changed the terms to be with current and sent it back to Mike to look one more time, just in case something's changed in the last 5 years, and he gave it the thumbs up. So, with further ado, I would recommend approval of the contract to Rick Riglian for the next town manager position.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we accept the employment contract for Rick Kiroglian.
Kiroglian.
Sorry, different. Kiroglian, yes.
Rick it is.
I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion on the contract? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Into any comments from you, Mr. Town
Actually, I have
Manager?
quite a few comments tonight.
All right,
So
good
bear
deal.
with me. First, speaking of STR implementation, there's a couple of things I need to run by you. Now, again, we did a lot of work last year, and we had a lot of changes in December, and now we're in the implementation stage, and as you might expect, we're running into a couple of bumps in the road and that we're very open-minded to try and address. The biggest consternation at the moment is actually deals with trash. And there's a requirement in the zoning code, but there's also parts of it in the regular town code. And issue number one is that in the regular town code, there was a provision that we put in there to allow someone to remove the second or third one for short periods of time. The implementation of that's going to be a nightmare. Just trying to decide when are they going to turn it back on, who's going to turn it back on, no one's going to want to pay for it. So we are going to recommend, and all this is going to come back to you in official form, I'm telling you now, that we remove that exception from the regular code. However, as a compensating factor, we would like to add as a acceptable alternative to having a second receptacle that if the SCR on their own dime pays for more than one pickup per week, then rather than having two that's picked up once a week, they could have one that's picked up twice a week. Something like that. So we wouldn't give that kind of flexibility because there's a number of SCRs that are doing that now. So it's kind of, we kind of want to, one's in the zoning code and one's in the regular code, but they kind of offset a little bit. Then there's a third issue with trash that we haven't really anticipated yet because it's kind of coming from Bay Creek, and Bay Creek is still not fully in the STR fold yet, and that's when it comes to really high density areas like the fairways. Trying to have 2 or more trash cans there where they're required to keep them in the garage and they have to have cars in the garage, it gets cumbersome. So we're still talking with them about a solution, but one solution might be, having central collection areas. Maybe instead of having all these cans, maybe we have dumpsters where they can put it. I don't know what the answer is yet. I'm saying we're still in discussions with them over this.
Let me clarify something that Brad said in the meeting. They're not required to have their cars in the garage. There's no, I lived over 7 years, my car was never, ever in the garage.
The carts have to be in the garage.
The trash cans, yes.
And the carts.
Yeah.
Golf carts.
Yeah, golf carts, but there's nothing that requires you to have your car parked.
I was wondering about that when I heard that, because I'm not
7
required.
years.
I'm not required to do it in Newport either.
No, and it's overall, and that's not true.
Well, I appreciate that, and we'll keep that in mind, and we're going to work through these details with these different groups. But the point is that we're trying to stay open-minded. This is all new to all of us, and we're willing to work with folks to try and do some reasonable changes, and so expect to see those coming.
And if there is something that's written down somewhere, tell them to show it to you. I can tell you, it's not written down anywhere.
Okay. The next issue has to do with, again, trying to take make the best use of this grace period. One of the things that we requested and you approved was that in addition to the permit requirements having a year's grace period, we also made the fee a part of that grace period too, so no one had to pay. And the reason we did that was because we didn't want it to be a financial penalty for someone to come in early. We want people to come in early for us to start getting this paperwork done. There's a lot of extra work that first year, doing a lot of these data collections, and once we get the software online, getting it populated, just getting everything up and running in the time we have left. So while we removed a disincentive for people coming in early, we didn't provide any incentive for them to come in early. And so there's no reason for them to do that. They're all going to just come rushing in at the last minute in November. So what I would like to propose is that we allow a waiver for the permit fee in 2026 for anybody who comes in before July 1. In other words, so if we can, with the software package, RFP hit the street today, or yesterday, whatever it was. We'll be bringing that back to you in a month or 6 weeks, or whatever it takes to do that. That gives us the time to get that up and running and start getting that populated. So that's not a function that we would do here. It's really mostly a function of part of the budget. Because when we do the budget work and we bring you the fees, and we would codify it there, where what the fees are going to be, because we never really landed on the fee yet, right? That's still going to be as part of the regular budget. But creating that waiver for anyone who would come in early as an incentive to get us ahead of that curve. But I can't wait until we do the budget to do that, or we're not going to have time for it. So I guess what I'm asking is does anybody have objections to us letting folks know that that's what they can expect once the budget gets approved, so that we can get people moving forward? As a concept, does that seem reasonable?
I object to that. We would then be putting this entire dollar figure that was just approved on the heads and on the tax dollars of everybody else, and not on the short-term rentals, which defeats the purpose to me.
For 1 year, and only for those that come in early. It may not be all of them, but yes, you're right.
Many of them are going to take advantage of now a 2-year free. And so where do we recoup this number that you're putting here is $57,000, and the cost of a new employee and a golf cart that now no short-term rental homeowners are paying for? That's my issue.
We wouldn't. Well, as I said when we first did this, that we were going to eat the first year. But you're correct. We would be eating a chunk of the second year as well to do this.
Well, then it also goes back to what I think Katie had, up to 90 days.
We took that
No,
out.
we took that out.
Took that out.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, that's right.
We did.
Do you run the risk of having everybody want to take advantage of that and then have too many people coming in before July 1st and then basically creating the same chaos for Jeb and for your net?
But it doesn't have to take effect until November. So if we don't
You still have time.
process it as quickly, it's not a big deal. But,
Gotcha.
But we'll be ready next November
Right.
when it comes time.
Whereas later it
Yeah.
does become time
Yeah,
sensitive.
exactly.
to do. Yeah.
It's not going to affect anybody's bookings or anything. So do I have general consensus to
I like the idea of an incentive, but I don't know if I agree with the complete, the whole fee. I mean, I would be supportive of a 50% off, something that is,
Anything would help.
is helpful, but it's not going to fully impact some of the things that we've laid out, or if there's something else that we could incentivize. I like that fact, and I understand, especially when we're getting started and getting our legs kind of secure, we need some time to do that, to do it well.
I think a 50% would still provide an adequate incentive.
I mean, to me, that sounds appealing, if I'm registering, that would be like, okay.
Since we haven't even
worthwhile.
set that fee though yet, do people really have a way to
Idea
kind of
what that is.
identify what they'd be
We
saving?
talk about it in public meetings. I mean, it's out there. I mean, people know that we're.
Oh, they know.
They know what universe we're talking. So even a 50% incentive, that's a couple $100. That's not.
And they would be notified, like I just got the other information that you guys sent, that we sent about the whole short-term rental policy. You'd send that out again and say, if you pay this by this date, it's like a slash.
Yeah, we'll have to get the word out.
Yeah.
Except now, even if it's 50% off for the second year, you're really talking about 75% off. The first year's free,
But
and
for-
the second year is half off.
Yeah, although the first year doesn't have all the costs.
It doesn't have the
for
additional
the full
fees.
year. Yeah.
It
But
still
yeah.
has the fees
But-
associated.
Yeah, I mean, your point's well taken. Yeah.
So who's really eating? It's not, somebody's paying that cost somewhere. It's not free. It's someone's paying it. And are we shifting the burden of who's paying for this short-term rental back to full-time residents? And to me, we are. Or we're actually spreading it between all homeowners, and those who don't rent their homes at all are having to share some of that burden, which to me is unfair.
But it's for a very short period of time, and it's a cost of business of getting a situation in place that will ultimately help and address the concerns of the full-time residents that are not doing STRs. So, yes,
Yeah, that's what I would say, is that on some level, we're doing all this to answer the concerns of people who felt that it was unmanaged and unregulated. So if there's a cost to us doing that, eventually, hopefully we'll absorb that by the actual people who are renting the homes. But if I were very much opposed to STRs, I'd be okay with a little bit of money being spent on keeping a tab on it and knowing how many we had and making sure that everybody who was doing it was paying in and not getting away with doing it under the table and all that type of stuff. So I think there's...
Is this gonna be a yearly thing?
no.
Just a one-time?
Oh, no, just the one time.
One time only, just this year, just to get preloaded before the grace period's up.
You're gonna have a software system in place by July 1st?
Oh, yeah, we certainly hope so.
I would say it won't be live by July 1st.
But we'll have the data that,
Yes,
We need to
we'll
be
we'll be fully in implementation and bringing it online. We're looking for a go-live date probably early fall. We want it open and ready for new applications coming in October. Because that will open us up for all the applications coming in 2026.
so the data coming in before July, that would be, we put that in
We're doing it in
Excel spreadsheets that can be imported into the, yeah.
Right, yeah, the work would be done, it'll
Right.
just,
So even though it's not coming online till October, when you're filling out all that initial paperwork right now, because obviously it is now 4 forms as opposed to
Yeah.
just the 2 that had to be done before, those still will be put into where those aren't going to be done over and
That's
over.
correct. As
Okay.
part of the RFP, we've asked for historical data importation to be part of the scope of services from the vendor.
So did I just want to make sure I understand, you've got to put all of this into an Excel spreadsheet to begin with, to get it to...
We're doing that right now.
Okay. So we're already tracking this to some degree, and now we're going to have a software system on top of
So
it.
that we stop tracking it by paper. Yes.
And the software system you're saying is going to go live in the next fiscal year.
Yes.
Right,
For
so we've made a
2026.
budget adjustment for it now.
We're gonna buy it this fiscal year.
We're going to buy it now, but we're not even going to start using it until next fiscal year.
But there's lots of setup and programming that has to happen with the town employees to get it to the go-live point. So we will start incurring milestones of payment in this fiscal year.
But we will reap no rewards. It won't solve any problems for us in this fiscal year because the data is not going to be put in until next fiscal year. And we're already collecting that same data.
I
Just-
disagree
No.
with that characterization. It will absolutely benefit us because we will be able to implement this at the end of the grace period. We will not be able to do it otherwise.
Right, we'll just be kicking it down the road.
Yeah.
So when would the additional hire be put on? Would we wait until it's implemented in October, or are we looking now?
Can you answer this one?
Go ahead.
Sorry. I'm going to get yelled at on Facebook, they can't hear me. We actually are looking to bring the hire on sometime this spring. In fact, I'm working on the job description with Jeb right now. We'll have that going over to finance, to HR, probably beginning of next week, so we can start recruiting, because we need to send them to 2 classes at the Building Academy. One would be the end of March, for a couple days for one class, and then the second class is in May for them in order to be an inspector under Jeb, to do the safety inspection piece of things. So yes, that person would need to come on now so that we can get all the training done for them, and they'll be able to help us in the office and deal with some of the pressure that we are having right now, because this is mostly a brand-new requirement for some of our departments, and what we are looking to do for this town under your ordinance and tracking and data collection, and setting parameters of occupancy, which is a standard we never had to do before. So yes, that position would be coming on in this budget year.
And that person's going to be wearing multiple hats. It's not just going to be inspections with Jeb.
Oh, yes.
They're going to be working in my office, so Jeb and I, that's part of the job description we're writing up. They'll be shared between the two of us and oversight and enforcement issues with STRs, administration, management, helping with the applications, the software, all of that kind of stuff.
And perhaps even helping relieve
Yes.
the pressure in finance.
Yes.
So
Okay.
wherever, you know, we're still putting that puzzle together.
Okay,
We
that's fine.
we agreed to a budget to
Yeah.
split it amongst the three.
Right.
That was part of our vote tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Correct.
So, do I have consensus for a 50% discount, one time only, to get people in early this year?
Before you go any further, I want to say that that's a conflict of interest for me, so I'm not going to vote on that part when it does come to be a vote.
And I don't vote, so,
Okay,
even though it is a conflict.
okay. Okay with the rest of you? Okay. All right. Next, not necessarily STR related, but to help with if there are STR questions as it relates to B-Poll, the finance department's putting on a not really open house, but an opportunity for one-on-one meetings on a Saturday. Saturday, the 15th of February, from 8 a.m. to 2. So anybody that's interested and wants to learn more about or having questions about how B-Poll works, or they can come in and call and schedule an appointment. And
Planning and zoning and building will also
Also be there.
Saturday, offering hours for the same purpose, not to do people, but to also do the STR paperwork.
oh, okay.
I was going to compliment you guys on my comments, because I was really impressed when I got that today.
Yeah, I apologize for that. The letter I saw was about B-Poll, but yes, you're right. So anyway, on the 15th, that's an opportunity for people to come in and kind of get familiar with all these new procedures. Next up is the harbor. So I touched base with you during the work session on the budget, and there's a couple of new leases that we're contemplating. One was that seaplane lease, and I provided you with kind of that concept. I guess threw it at you that night. The other one is the paddle wheel cruise that's over there. Wants to come over and relocate on the outer harbor there by the shanty, and I understand they're working with the shanty for food and that sort of thing. So we're going to be working out some sort of a lease there. So what I wanted to just offer is, not tonight, but if any of you have any questions, thoughts, concerns about either of those two leases, please forward them to me so I can get back to you on it, okay? Otherwise, we're going to start developing those and move forward. The second thing on harbor related, we're not changing any of the rates this year. We talked about that at the budget work session too. We're going to do that next year after we have a year under our belt. But one thing that was never really done cleanly before was the fuel surcharge. It was kind of all over the place depending on the grade of fuel. It was just very difficult. So what we're going to be going forward is we're going to be charging a 25% surcharge or $1, whichever is greater. That is consistent with all the other marinas in the area. All the other marinas in the area are 28 to 32% or $1. So we're at 25% or $1. So we're a little bit less than kind of the going rate, but that standardizes it. So I just wanted to brief you on that's what we're intending to do with this year. Next up. As you all, I think most of you know, our town attorney is Mike Sterling, who has been representing the town for over 3 decades. It was back into the 90s. The firm has kind of combined and changed names slightly, but Mike has been constant. He's always been our primary attorney. I'm just trying to tie up a bunch of loose ends before I leave, and one of the things that I've been meaning is on my list to do and haven't gotten around to it yet is get an updated engagement letter with his firm. The last one was done 20 years ago. So it's time. So anyway, legal services are exempt from the procurement code, so it's not like we have to go to RFP or anything. So last time this happened, Libby showed me the minutes, so we just briefed the council on it, and then we went ahead. Mike gives us a substantial discount. I know for a fact because he's now the attorney for Chincoteague, and I meet with the manager of Chincoteague regularly, and he rubs it in my face all the time that he gets charged much more than we do. So Mike gives us a big discount for his hours, but also in this letter, he's offering a 15% discount on all the other rates. So unless there's an objection, I intend to execute that updated. I just wanted it in the minutes that I briefed you on it, and that just one of the things I want to get off my plate before I leave.
Lucy's not retiring.
That's what I was
That's what I was waiting
I
for.
thought that's where you were going. I'm like, oh,
That's what I
no.
was thinking.
That's not good timing.
No. Moving on to beachfront master planning. So I sent dates on that, and when I coordinated with the consultant, they requested a change. So we're still shooting for, the Saturday meeting is March 1st. So we're still doing that. We're going to be doing these up at the Y. But the evening meeting, instead of being the Wednesday before, they prefer to do the Wednesday after. So it'll be Wednesday, March 5th. So the two dates for the public input session, with the stations and all that, it's going to be March 1st, Saturday, and March 5th, Wednesday. Okay?
Do you have times?
Yeah, that's,
I don't have an exact yet. We're thinking of going from 10 to 2 on Saturday,
that's what I had put in.
and probably from 5 to 7:30 on Wednesday. I'm going to nail that down with them, but that's what we're looking at right now.
It's like a short council meeting.
Okay, next thing. It was also brought up that
Bless you.
that we should consider changing our ordinance to allow for a council representative on the Historic District Review Board. And we can do that. That's going to require a change in the code. However, before we go through that work, I just wanted to actually confirm, since this is the busiest board we have, it's an enormous amount of time and effort. Is there anybody who would actually volunteer for it if we did it?
Good question. Excellent question.
Sounds like you.
Is that a yes?
No. Because I've watched 50 of these
Yeah.
sessions, and I know what it entails.
It's an incredible amount of work. And so,
I offered the planning commission up until this point, I think would have outdone Harvard.
Yes.
But given all that's behind us.
yes, we
Harvard
just finished a
is
lot of
continue
time.
on.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Arbor or
Historic.
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 Okay.
So I mean, I get it. I don't disagree that a council representative would be nice there, but it's, as a practical matter, it's just so much work. Unless there's a volunteer, I would rather
Why
not
go
go
through
through the
the
work of
motions?
making the code change.
Right.
Because it's not just a code change, it's a zoning change. It has to go through the planning commission.
I think it's so important. I mean, I'm going to fight. I can't do it. I can't do it with my other responsibilities, but I think it's a missed opportunity for us to not have representation.
I'd be willing to consider it, but I'd want to talk to you first, Sean, if that's okay. Just to
Yeah.
get a better handle of knowing what, when you say a lot of work, I'd like to
Okay.
have a
Yeah.
better scope of
All
that.
right, well, if one of you steps forward and express some interest, we'll talk later, and if Tara's willing to step up, then we'll go through the process. But I didn't want us to go through all that if it's just going to lay vacant.
Agreed.
All right, all
Good
right.
point.
Okay. Next up is February's supposed to be a short month, but would you be available for a work session next Thursday, 13th?
Only with Valentine's Day.
I can't. I'm teaching a cooking class. I really can't. Can't do it.
Yes,
What-
I could.
Where I'm at is, I'm at the point now where I just need to talk to you guys about resource allocation and potential purchases. And we have so much on our plate between trying to purchase land for a new town hall, purchase the railroad property, to build a new town hall, to start working on the beachfront. I mean, yes, we have some resources, but we don't have unlimited resources. And when I start cranking the numbers and doing the math, we can't do it all. We just can't do it all. And so we're about to present to you the data from the survey, which I want you to live with 2 weeks, and then we're going to come back and talk about updating the strategic plan and our priorities. It would be nice if before that, we had this discussion about what are our resources and where do you want to start putting them. If not, I mean, we could do it.
Could we do it the 12th? Do we have to do it on a Thursday?
No, don't. Well, I mean, unless there's some
Well,
other.
Wednesday,
another
Tuesday,
meeting.
Wednesday?
Wednesday?
I mean, I'm fine that week.
I mean, it sounds like something I really
You want to be part
want
of
to
it?
be a part
Is there
of.
another meeting on the 12th, Libby?
The library
But it's
meeting.
not here.
Yeah.
That would only affect Tara, because she's the rep for the library board. That starts at 5. I don't know how long they last.
Not that long.
So you could be
theoretically,
here at
it's
6? Would the 12th work?
I'm fine with 12.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate
It
it.
would really be good to have all of you there.
Yeah, I really,
All
really wanna
right,
be
so if that's okay, then I'm going to ask Libby to post that tomorrow for a work session on the 12th to kind of go over resource allocations. And I just want to walk you through what I'm seeing. I've seen something in writing about potential acquisition of the railroad property now, and I'm working on something for land for the new town hall, as you know. I need to brief you on it all.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Good deal.
Okay? All right, well, thank
I
you.
think Paul and I were already thinking about that.
did you, earlier, we were talking about doing something on the 27th also?
Well, if,
Yeah.
there's a possibility that the shanty might need some help with their lease, which I just found out about today. I don't know, but if a lease amendment is required, my initial read is it requires a public hearing. A public hearing that's 7 days in advance, which means I can't make February 20th.
Yeah.
Because for earliest I could get it in the paper would be next Friday, which is only 6 days in advance. So yes, if it was a time-sensitive thing for John, the earliest I could make that happen would be the 27th. It would be a short special meeting.
Should we just hold that though?
So yeah, would 27th be a problem if you?
Do we have
is
to push
anybody
it all the way to
couldn't-
the 27th?
I'm sorry?
Do we have to push it to the 27th, or could we do the,
It could be.
That Tuesday
yes,
before.
It has to be at least set, so if the paper comes out on the 14th, it has to be after the 21st. So it could be, it could be any time that week.
Can I jump in? I'm sorry. I
24th,
think 27th is fine. I'll tell you, this is
Yeah.
just for the record too. I just found out about this today, right? So I don't want you guys to think that I'm trying to put John or you guys under the pressure with this. It's a long story. I haven't filled you on it. But the 27th is fine.
Okay.
all right.
All right, John needs to get me the language next week, and so I'll know better then. But if you could just tentatively keep the 27th available too,
Yeah,
and we'll be
We
meeting
may
there.
find out very quickly on Monday that's a non-issue altogether.
but at least we have it,
Yeah.
just in case, it's easier to,
Okay, so
Cancel.
we're meeting every
Yeah.
week in February.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's a short month, you gotta get as much as you can.
that's right.
Gosh, we might,
that'll be a
we might make a quarter of an hour in
Yeah, hopefully,
February.
that would be a very quick special meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, it would be a public hearing and a special meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, next up. I don't know if any of you have been contacted yet about this. If not, you will be soon. There is a proposal for someone to purchase the Seabreeze properties and work to try to renovate them back into use. The issue is that the two buildings that were declared unsafe for human habitation, there's a 1-year period when that expires, it loses its legal non-conforming use. It's currently zoned R1. You can't have those types of activities in that zoning. So if it loses its current non-conforming use on those two buildings, it can no longer be used for those. That use goes away in the end of this month. We've just been contacted last week, or just not very long ago, that someone wants to come in and do something. Katie's been working very hard on this. We've been communicated with our attorneys on this. The attorneys agree with the zoning administrator's read of the ordinance. They cannot just come in and get a building permit in order to stop the clock. Our ordinance specifically says the repairs have to be substantially complete within that year. Well, they only have a couple weeks left, and they don't even have a building permit yet. It's not going to happen, okay? So there is a way forward. The way forward would be conditional rezoning. So I'm not saying, we made no promises that you would do that, or that we would support that. We're just saying that what they're alluding to is the potential for workforce housing.
That's what I was going to ask.
And so that could be something attractive to the town. It's something you may want to consider, but without going through some sort of conditional zoning, there would be no way of guaranteeing that. You know, right now, if the non-conforming use was just to continue, they could say that they wanted to do workforce housing, and they could, but then they could change their mind at any time and make it STRs. You know, I mean, so what we're saying is that the representatives of the buyers who are trying to get this done are not particularly happy with us right now because of our interpretation of the code, that we're not going to be able to stop this by the end of the month. So usually when they're not happy with staff, they go to you. So I'm warning you that this could become.
What does it change to after that month?
R1.
Single family.
So again, there's a way forward, it's rezoning. So anyway, I just wanted to.
How real is this? We've had people come in and sell us, whatever, and never do anything. How real is it?
That's not that group.
Not that.
Well,
No,
no, I think,
I'm just saying, I don't know who this is, but
neither do we. We can't find out who the owners are. The purchasers, I'm sorry. But I think that's why our ordinance requires the work be substantially complete.
yeah.
This way they have to actually put skin in the game, right? And so,
But if I go through the motions of rezoning like we've done before, and the land just sits there, how real is this?
I can't speak to that. That's something you'll have to consider when it
Yeah,
comes
okay.
when
All right.
it comes to you for rezoning.
Case in point, the harbor.
Yeah.
So
But
anyway,
you're just letting us know because we're going to get.
this is just a heads up in case you start getting calls.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so where does it stand now? I guess that's what I'd like to know.
So-
When you say if it comes up, so if people reach out to us.
So what they're going to want is a waiver. They're going to want you to waive this requirement. They want us to waive this requirement. It is in code. I don't have the authority to ignore the code. You don't have the authority to ignore the code. You have the authority to change the code, but you can't just ignore the code. And the code right now says that it has to be substantially complete in that period of time. So if someone comes to you saying, we want the council to waive this, your answer is, well, we can't.
Right.
Okay?
What's the process for changing the zoning?
Well, I mean.
I'm sorry, what was that? What did you say?
The official term was.
Official zoning request and planning commission.
Exactly.
Yeah, see, I don't.
Going through all the motions.
No, it's a fair question. I mean, it could take 3 to 4 months, basically. So basically, they have to come in and make an application, then we have to do all of our advertising. Then it goes to a public hearing for the planning commission, the planning commission makes a recommendation. Then it goes out for advertising again, public hearing for the council acts.
So really, with them just getting started on this, it's not like it's a lot. It's not like they've been sitting on it for this time, and now they're going through 3 months worth of motion. I mean,
And that-
3 months is
But isn't this
pretty common.
there's the purchase predicated
Yes.
on this, and that's the concern.
Yes.
Is that are the purchasers just gonna walk away?
And that, we get that all the time.
I don't know.
People come in and say, what's the lay of the land?
Right.
Because I don't want to buy it unless I know I'm going to get it.
But the reason
Understood.
for the
Understood.
process is exactly what Paul said. You know, everybody comes in and wants to do this or this, but to change zoning, we really need to go through that
But it doesn't sound
process.
like
Now, is this
it's
going to
impossible
auction, or is it a private sale at this point?
Keeping the non-conforming use on those 2 buildings. The other 2 buildings, they actually still have more than a year left on. But on those 2 that were considered not, it wasn't actually condemned, but they were not.
Not inhabitable.
Not safe. That non-conforming use on those 2 buildings alone goes away on the 26th, 27th of this month. So.
There's no way.
Well, I mean, even if we were 100% in favor and knew who these people were, I don't think that's.
No, it can't be done. Can't be done.
No.
That's what I'm saying. The code says the work, you can't just get a permit and give us your plans. The work has to be substantially complete. So,
Now, is this actually going through Hyden USDA auction, or how are the buildings even up for sale?
I really don't know.
Yeah.
You can, I'd like to know.
The limited partnership that owns the property, as most of you know or are familiar with this, The two original partners that made up that partnership have all passed some time ago, so this was left in some limbo. The heirs of those individuals have reached some agreement. They have been able, through their general partnership agreement of other properties they hold, that this LP was sitting under. They have now named a liquidation trustee, and I've spoken with that trustee now. So this individual is the one that has been authorized to move forward with the sale of the property. So that's what they are seeking right now. They have entertained offers, and this is what they've accepted one right now, which is now going through its due diligence period to see if it will move to an actual sale closing date at the end of April.
90 days due diligence.
So just so I understand, if these same purchasers could purchase it, and the one area we're talking about actually reverts to an R1, and they could put single-family homes there.
That's a complicated answer.
Yeah, there's all kinds of requirements to make that happen, and the other two buildings might it's just complex.
But it does revert to that though, correct?
It
Those
reverts
two
back
buildings.
to having to now conform to the R1 zoning district. All the legal non-conforming uses that were on the property for those two buildings would cease and no longer exist. In order for those two buildings, or that land where those two buildings reside, would have to comply with all the terms and requirements to get to an R1 zoning lot, which requires road frontage as one example.
Okay. But that is, the fact of the matter is, it sounds like there'd be many hoops, but we'd be now looking at a place that was workforce housing converting to single-family homes, correct?
I'm not going to
No.
sit there and ever classify workforce housing. I'm not saying that the tenants that work there weren't working.
Multi-family units, is that correct?
Yes.
Condos, townhomes.
Okay,
Section 8.
Section, government.
all right.
But that's not.
All right, so we really don't have a lot of information on that to debate it. This is a heads up. Okay. Then, the last thing on my list, I just wanted to let you know I decided to do something really crazy. As you know, I'm from Philadelphia, and the Eagles are in the Super Bowl. And I decided that I wanted to watch the game with my sons and grandsons. And so I am going to fly to Alaska just for the weekend. It's 2 days there, 2 days back. So I'm going to go,
That's
what I'm
awesome.
saying is I'm going to be out, I'm leaving tomorrow. So Friday and Saturday I'm going there, Sunday I will be watching the game, and Monday and Tuesday I'll be coming home.
Yeah.
So.
Are you driving?
No,
I was like, 2 days? I was like, what the hell?
It's a 2-week drive.
Yeah, oh, okay. I've clearly never been to Alaska. But I was like, 2 days?
Actually, I'm surprised.
California.
But anyway, so, I mean, as always, when I'm not in my office, I am reachable. So just go ahead and reach out, text, email, whatever, call if you need me, but I'm
That's
going
awesome.
to
Good for you.
Enjoy.
go on a little adventure for the weekend.
Yes, indeed. That's great.
That's all I have.
All right, does anybody else have any comments this evening?
I've got bills that are in the legislature. I'll keep this really short. You give one to Katie too, please.
Here it is.
Here we go again, huh?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so it's not as bad
Good.
for one particular item. The grayed out bills are set aside or killed. All right, so you had a couple on ADUs. We could have followed this anyway, but what they have finally did is they have moved this Senate Bill 932 to have ADUs looked at in your comp plan. And that was the Virginia Housing Commission that I was on. That was our recommendation,
Right.
which sounds like that's where it's going. So all these requirements that originally were in 932 have been amended to now just require a comp plan review. So that's ADUs. The next one, 1313, it says any locality may amend the zoning ordinance to provide for affordable housing dwelling program, and it offers a whole bunch of stuff. But it's one of these may. You may want to do this, and we'll allow you to do that. Housing is a big push in this session.
Quick
Go
question,
ahead.
why would somebody oppose that?
Well, DeSep did, it looks
Yeah, I
like.
mean, to say that, yes, we may put in,
Well, again, it comes down to erosion of local control.
Yeah.
You're imposing something on us. Now, this is a may, so it's not
Right, this is we
imposing.
have to.
Okay, but some are and some aren't like that, okay? In fact, the ADUs, it was, you may address this in your comp plan. Okay, that waters it down to almost nothing, okay?
Right.
So, all right. The one that I'm concerned about is 2641. This one is requiring localities to increase our housing stock by 7.5% over a 5-year period.
How we do that?
So what's interesting, the Senate bill was killed. It failed to come out of committee, but this one is still alive. And VML is pushing to make sure this doesn't make it through. It's already made it through the House,
Jeez.
50 to 48. So this still has legs. It's in the subcommittee in the Senate. And I'd offer the mayor, if you're going to talk to the staff, this is one that you would say, I definitely want you to oppose.
Okay.
All right? This one is crazy. But
Since when are we gonna get
it's
the
got
housing
legs,
business?
that's all I can say. The rest, they go down to the bottom one here, and you've probably heard the subdivisions. They're chiseling away at some of the timelines on the subdivisions. And it's still hanging in there. The House passed it 97 to 1.
To
Go ahead.
put that in perspective, I have 60 to 90 days to review subdivisions, depending on the comments. They want to reduce it down to 30.
Jeez.
Well, what's interesting in this other one, 2641, there's a clause in there that they want to set up a 3-member housing approval board that can preempt local decisions.
Yowzer.
This is how strong housing is being pushed at the state level. Okay, some make it through. I'm shocked that this one's
When
still
is this
hanging
being
in
heard
there.
next, do you know?
Excuse me?
When is this being heard next?
I can get you information on that.
Okay, I can pull it up tomorrow as well.
Okay, okay. So that's, I just wanted to give you a rundown on,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think it's gonna affect the county more so because of what we talked about earlier
yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah.
Subdivision.
You have to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
And you have to, I don't know if you get approved at the state level, but you have to have a plan and
Wow.
1.5% per year for 5 years. Bay Creek, keep going and we'll be
Yeah,
satisfied. Yeah.
they got us covered.
I think we'll be fine.
Anybody else this evening?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.